So a lot of discussion going around in the country about jihad, hijab. And thankfully, Mrinalini has shared the playlist. So I will share this in YouTube, your WhatsApp groups as well today. So don't worry. Mm, what I was saying. So hijab ka issue chal raha hai, and thankfully that's all that we have to read today. The politics in religion, the politics in caste, and the politics in feminism. The state issues, which whether the states should be allowed to take their own decision or not. So we will be discussing federalism. That's the topic today. So we are. That's why that's uh, that's why I love this live classes, because you can go through the polity class recording videos as well. Those were recorded about 4 months back. The same content is same, but during these classes we take up a lot of new issues, and which in my view, I don't know how many of you appreciate this, but in my view this enhances the quality of the classes, just not limiting it to what NCRT has written, right? अच्छा लगता है करंट से रिलेट कर पाते हैं तो चलो. So before we move forward, एक इश्यू चल रहा था दिमाग में अचानक से, एक कविता याद आ गई and issue came into mind: freedom. Although we will be reading about freedom specifically, we will soon going to start polity, class 11th, political theory, and there we have to read a special chapter on freedom. Now, freedom means a lot of different things in polity. Like the way you understand freedom is completely different from how we define freedom in polity. But freedom, all of you like to be free, right? फ्रीडम सबको चाहिए, कोई ऐसा है जिसको नहीं चाहिए? चाहिए सबको, नहीं चाहिए? हाँ या ना? अरे हाँ, चलो कम से कम संदीप को चाहिए. We love to be free. We love to do what we want to do. Don't like to be dictated. Do not like boundaries. So there are two poems that I really like a lot. Anybody from South India who do not understand Hindi at all, you need to be a little bit patient. पहली कविता है हम पंछी उन्मुक्त गगन के. तुम लोगों ने, बहुत लोगों ने सुनी भी होगी, हम पंछी उन्मुक्त गगन के. शिवमंगल सिंह सुमन लिखते हैं कि हम पंछी उन्मुक्त गगन के पिंजड़ बंद ना रह पाएंगे, कनक तीलियों से टकराकर पुलकित पंख टूट जाएंगे. हम by the very nature we are free spirits, we want to be free। और अगर हमको कोई पिंजड़े में बंद कर दे तो कनक तीलियों से टकराकर पुलकित पंख टूट जाएंगे। पिंजड़ा अगर सोने का भी हो तब भी हम उससे निकलने का कोशिश करेंगे। ये कहते हैं कनक तीलियों से टकराकर पुलकित पंख टूट जाएंगे, हम बहता जल पीने वाले मर जाएंगे भूखे प्यासे। कहीं भली है कटुक निबोरी कनक कटोरी की मैदा से। स्वर्ण श्रृंखला के बंधन में अपनी गति उड़ान सब भूलें, बस सपनों में देख रहे हैं तरु के फुनगी पर के झूले। We do not dare to achieve our dreams। हमारे ड्रीम्स क्या होते हैं? बस जैसे पंछी कोई पिंजड़े में हो और वो बस सोच रही हो कि काश मैं किसी पेड़ पे बैठ के और झूला झूल पाती, लेकिन उसके पास वो डेयर नहीं है। वो पिंजड़े में बंद होकर बस वो सपने में ही सोच सकती है कि मैं पेड़ के टॉपेस्ट ब्रांच पे बैठ के विंड के साथ झूला झूल रही होती। तो स्वर्ण श्रृंखला के बंधन में अपनी अपनी गति उड़ान सब भूलें, बस सपनों में देख रहे हैं तरु के फुनगी पर के झूले। पर अरमान क्या थे, सपने क्या थे? ऐसे थे अरमान की उड़ते नील गगन की सीमा पाने, लाल किरण सी चोंच खोल चुगते ताड़क अनार के दाने। होती सीमाहीन क्षितिज से इन पंखों की होड़ा होड़ी। आसमान में बिकॉज इट्स लिमिटलेस स्काई, और वहां आसमान में लड़ाई किस चीज की होती है? अगर पंछी जब उड़ रहा है, so the fight is between the limitless sky and the wings। कितना उड़ सकते हो तुम? तो sky is daring you, do you have the courage to test my limits? And that's practically what the world is always challenging you, do you have the courage to test its limit? और पंछी क्या करती है कि होती सीमाहीन क्षितिज से इन पंखों की होड़ा होरी। या तो क्षितिज मिलन बन जाता या तनती सांसों की डोरी। या तो क्षितिज, या तो मिल जाते आसमान से, टेस्ट कर लेते क्या है अंत, कहाँ जाके सब खत्म होता है। और या तो क्या होता है, या तनती सांसों की डोरी, या सांस फूल जाता, दम निकल जाता, मर जाते। होती सीमाहीन क्षितिज से इन पंखों की होरा होरी। या तो क्षितिज मिलन बन जाता या तनती सांसों की डोरी। पंछी क्या कहते हैं कि नीर न दो, चाहे टहनी का आश्रय छिन्न भिन्न कर डालो। या तो पानी भी मत दो, या जो मेरे पास है वो भी तोड़ दो। और टहनी पे जो आश्रय बना है, जो घोंसला बना है, वह भी तोड़ दो। नीड़ न दो, चाहे टहनी का आश्रय छिन्न भिन्न कर डालो, लेकिन पंख दिए हैं तो आकुल उड़ान में बिखर डालो। लेकिन पंख दिए हैं तो आकुल उड़ान में बिघ्न न डालो। पंख है तो उड़ने दो, चाहे जो लेना है ले लो। मैं इसलिए ये बात आज कह रहा हूँ बिकॉज द लेसन आई डिराइव फ्रॉम दिस पोएम। एंड एक और कविता है इसी इसी लाइन पे, सेम कवि लोग चिड़ियों से ज्यादा इंस्पायर्ड हो जाते हैं। तो सर्वेश्वर दयाल सक्सेना की एक कविता है मुक्ति की आकांक्षा। क्या होता है, चिड़िया, कवि कहते हैं कि चिड़िया को लाख समझाओ कि पिंजड़े के बाहर धरती बहुत निर्मम है। चिड़िया को लाख समझाओ कि पिंजड़े के बाहर धरती बहुत बड़ी है, निर्मम है। वहां हवा में उसे अपने जिस्म की गंध तक न मिलेगी। हमें क्या कहा जाता है? ऑल ऑफ अस आर टोल्ड दिस रिपीटेडली कि The world outside is so fearful and so frightening, so cruel that you will lose yourself. तुम्हें हवा में अपने जिस्म की गंध तक न मिलेगी। यहाँ यूं तो बाहर समुंदर है, नदी है, झरना है, पर पानी के लिए भटकना है। बाहर सब कुछ है, लेकिन पानी के लिए भटकना है। यहाँ कटोरी में भरा जल गटकना है। घर में रहना कितना आसान है, पिंजड़े में रहना कितना आसान है। आराम से तुम वो कटोरी में जल दूसरा कोई भर देता है, तुम उसको पी लेते हो। बाहर तो तुमको भटकना पड़ेगा पानी पीने के लिए। यूं तो बाहर समुंदर है, नदी है, झरना है, पर पानी के लिए भटकना है। यहाँ कटोरी में भरा जल गटकना है। बाहर दाने का टोटा है, यहाँ चुग्गा मोटा है। बाहर तुमको भटकना पड़ेगा, एक एक दाना ढूंढ ढूंढ के खाना पड़ेगा। घर में, पिंजड़े में आराम से मिल जाता है। बाहर बहेलिए का डर है, यहाँ निर्द्वंद कंठ स्वर है। बाहर जाओगे शिकार हो जाएगा, बहेलिया है, मार देगा। रूड पीपल। यहाँ निर्द्वंद कंठ स्वर है। तो यहाँ जो बोलना है घर में बोलो, नोबडी इज स्टॉपिंग यू। फिर भी चिड़िया मुक्ति का गाना गाएगी। चिड़िया क्या करेगी? इतना सब समझाने के बाद भी कि पिंजड़े में कितना सब कुछ अच्छा है, लाइफ में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, फिर भी चिड़िया मुक्ति का गाना गाएगी। मारे जाने की आशंका से भरे होने पर भी पिंजड़े से जितना अंग निकाल सकेगी निकालेगी। उसको डर है कि बाहर जाएगी मारी जाएगी, लेकिन फिर भी चिड़िया मुक्ति का गाना गाएगी। मारे जाने की आशंका से भरे होने पर भी पिंजड़े से जितना अंग निकाल सकेगी निकालेगी। हरसू जोड़ लगाएगी और पिंजड़ा टूट जाने या खुल जाने पर उड़ जाएगी। पिंजड़ा टूट जाने या खुल जाने पर उड़ जाएगी। Freedom needs a lot of sacrifices. Freedom is not security. Freedom is not relaxation. Freedom is not what you think of. Freedom comes with a lot of struggle. And those who truly love freedom, they are ready to face those struggles. या तो क्षितिज मिलन बन जाता या तनती सांसों की डोरी। When you want to achieve that freedom, you should be ready. Either on the one hand you have death, and on the other hand you have freedom. And you have to decide कि what you like. किसको किसको चाहिए freedom? पिंजड़ा चाहिए, freedom चाहिए? When you want freedom, be ready. तब वहां कंप्लेन नहीं है कि मुझे ये मिल जाता तो मैं ये कर लेती, या ये मिल जाता तो मैं ये कर लेता। फ्रीडम, अम्बेडकर ने क्या कहा था? फ्रीडम कम्स फ्रॉम स्ट्रगल। व्हेन यू फाइट यू गेट फ्रीडम। चलो स्टार्ट करते हैं क्लास। बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट लेसन है आज। बात समझ में आई कुछ? NCERT chapter 4 class 9th, working of institutions. All of you probably remember that speech or might have heard that speech somewhere from Atal Bihari Vajpayee. उन्होंने कहा कि सरकारें आती हैं जाती हैं पर यह देश रहना चाहिए. What does he meant when he said कि देश रहना चाहिए? Governments will come and go, but country should remain. Country should be there. So what he was meaning back then? देश क्या है? That geographical land space that we see, that country is its people, or what? Should be peace and happiness. Where? Peace and happiness can be there without people, without countries as well, right? So today we are going to decipher that meaning. What is this country of that particular speech meant? So today, first we will read about how the major policy decisions are taken. We have read that what democracy is. Now we are reading democracy in action, how democracy is implemented, how decisions are taken in a democracy, who is pulling the song. Government order. So whatever happens in our country, there will be a government order for that implementation of that particular thing. So we are going by an example. This particular office memorandum, here you have been given an example. This office memorandum was issued by Government of India on 13th August 1990. It was signed by the Joint Secretary, an officer in the Department of Personnel and Training in the Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pensions. इस मिनिस्ट्री में देखो ऐसा क्या होता है, मिनिस्ट्री होती है, so there will be Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Finance and all these ministries will have different departments. So similarly, there is a ministry called Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievance and Pensions. In that we have a department called Department of Personnel and Training. This department के joint secretary, which you will become if you get an IAS rank, and when you will be getting promotion, you will become the joint secretary someday. So the joint secretary issued this office memorandum. It was very short, just एक page का आया, but it has huge repercussions. It was very important. क्या होता है? The subject of this office memorandum was 27% reservation for socially and educationally backward classes in civil posts and services. तो इसमें इन्होंने क्या कहा कि we are going to reserve 27% vacancies in civil posts and services under the Government of India for socially and educationally backward classes. So इसके बाद क्या होता है? पहले तो ये समझ लो कि what is this socially and educationally backward classes. This socially and educationally backward class is another name of all the people who belong to castes that are considered backward by the government. So generally you must have been hearing about OBCs. So basically SEBC is another name of OBC, caste. And remember, constitution mentions class, not caste. It's not showing the socially and educationally backward castes. It's saying socially and educationally backward classes. Now, who made this decision that there should be 27% reservation? Although the letter has been signed by Joint Secretary, but do you think that Joint Secretary has that much power to take such a big decision? Actually not. The officer was merely implementing the instructions given by the Ministry of Personnel. Joint Secretary was just doing his duty, which was instructed to him by the ministry. So कौन कौन लोग इस बिल को बनाने में इन्वॉल्व होते हैं वो हम देखते हैं इसको. Let's go over some of the main points that you have covered. We know that president is the head of the state and is the highest formal authority in the country. President is formal authority. He is the highest formal authority, although he is not the actual authority. But formally हम मानते हैं कि आप हैं authority. And he is head of the state. Now all of you know the meaning of state. We have discussed extensively. So he is the head of the state. Prime Minister is the head of the government. UPSC has asked this question before as well. So President is head of the state and Prime Minister is head of the government. President is formal authority. Prime Minister is actual authority. He actually exercises all government powers. And he takes most of the decisions in the cabinet meetings. We will discuss about क्या cabinet क्या होता है. Just wait for a minute. Finally, the third agency is parliament, consists of president and two houses of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This we have also discussed. Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha plus president makes parliament. So whenever I'm saying parliament, I'm meaning all these three: Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and president. So if I say कि law has been passed by parliament, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? The law has been passed by both or all of them, all three of them. The Prime Minister must have the support of a majority of Lok Sabha members. This we know. Prime Minister at any point of time must have the support of majority of the Lok Sabha members. So he must always have support of 273 members, more than 50%. तो क्या करें कि ये जो ऑफिस मेमोरेंडम आया, this was a culmination of a long chain of events. A lot of things has happened before and finally this memorandum came. कहाँ से ये शुरू होता है? It started way back in 1979. In 1979, government appointed a commission, Second Backward Classes Commission, which was headed by B.P. Mandal. Now, B.P. Mandal, in his report, which he produced in 1980, after a year, he said that 27% of the government jobs to be reserved for socially and educationally backward classes. Mandal Commission, very, very important. We see, you might have heard the expression. We see that in 1991, or we see that there is a tussle between Mandal and Kamandal की राजनीति. देखेंगे इस पे आएंगे क्या है मंडल एंड कमंडल. अगर किसी ने सुना होगा तो बहुत बढ़िया. Then you are politically aware. So this is the Mandal Commission of Mandal and Kamandal. So he recommended this, but for several years, parliamentarians and parties kept demanding the implementation of the commission recommendation. बहुत सालों तक nobody actually dared, no government dared to implement Mandal Commission's report. But in Lok Sabha election of 1898, Janata Dal promise that if they will come to the power, they will implement Mandal Commission report. So VP Singh, the Prime Minister, who he won in that election, and he implemented this. So first, कैसे होता है? President of India in his address to the Parliament announced the intention of the government to implement the recommendation of Mandal Commission. First, President of India, whenever a new Parliament is starting, or the very first session of the Parliament on every year is addressed by the President. इस साल भी President ने अपना भाषण दिया सबसे पहले. So in that year, President declared that government is planning to implement the recommendations of Mandal Commission. On 6 August 1990, Union Cabinet took a formal decision to implement the recommendations. Union Cabinet ने, again, don't bother about Union Cabinet क्या है, हम आएंगे इस पे. मान लो कि गवर्नमेंट ने ये decision लिया that they will implement this recommendation. The very next day, VP Singh informed the Parliament about the decision through a statement in both houses of Parliament. So VP Singh went to Parliament. He announced the same in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The decision of the cabinet was sent to the Department of Personnel and Training. Then this decision of the cabinet was sent to the department which was working under the Ministry of Personnel, and they asked their officer to issue a memorandum, and then this memorandum was published. Next few weeks, this issue was hotly debated across the country. I don't know how many of you know about this, but this was a very, very sensitive period in Indian politics. Many people, you ask your parents, they will tell you, many people, especially belonging to general categories, they lit themselves on streets. बहुत दंगे और protest हुआ इस time पे. This was the widespread protest, counter protest, which were very violent. So some felt that existence of inequalities among the people of different castes in India necessitated job reservations. कुछ लोगों को लगा कि भाई ये job reservation बहुत जरूरी है. कुछ को लगा कि this was do nothing but only increase the discrimination. But it's saying in this chapter we are not going to discuss whether reservation was good or bad, because in 11th class polity we have to look at this in detail. So this is out of the purview. We are just trying to understand how decisions are made. Now this decision, this debate between the people, two groups of people, was resolved in the Supreme Court. So some persons and associations opposed this order, filed a number of cases in the courts. Supreme Court ने क्या किया है, different India में जहाँ कहीं भी केस हुए हाई कोर्ट्स में, Supreme Court bunched all these cases together, and one final case, Indira Sahni versus Union of India case, very, very important, you must remember this. And this was the 11 judge bench. The Supreme Court में हमने पढ़ा था judiciary में that there will be one judge, there can be one judge bench, there can be two judges bench, there can be three judges bench, and larger the bench, more prominence their decisions will hold. So if one judge has said something, his decision can be negated by a two judges bench, and their decision can be negated or changed by three judges bench. So this judgment is an 11 judge bench decision. So anything, if you want to change the decision of this Indira Sahni case, you have to make a bench larger than this, or at least as big as this. इसको full bench बोलते हैं. So in this case, by majority, Supreme Court judges in 1992 declared that this order of the government was valid. Government ने 27% रिजर्वेशन को accept किया, but Supreme Court also asked to modify its original order, and they said कि a creamy layer should be added into this. So you exclude the people who are well off, well-to-do persons से उनको exclude करो. So creamy layer law was introduced here. The dispute thus come to an end, and this policy has been followed since then. एक नया ऑफिशियल मेमोरेंडम आता है और उसके बाद से ये पॉलिसी अब इम्प्लीमेंट हो रही है इंडिया में. Now the question is the need of political institutions. Political institutions की जरूरत क्यों है इंडिया में, और for say any in any democracy. In this example we saw several institutions at work. क्या क्या institutions काम कर रही थी? Prime Minister and the cabinet are institutions that make important policy decisions. Prime Ministers and cabinet important decisions make करते हैं, अपने आप में एक institution है. Civil servants are responsible for implementing these, so they are one institution. Court is an institution where disputes of citizens can be settled. Now you see, working within institution is not easy. Institutions involves many rules and regulations. Institutions involves meeting, committees and routines. When think about this, if there would have been no judiciary or there would have been no parliament, Prime Minister could have implemented his wish very easily. Nobody would have stopped him. काफी आसानी से बहुत जल्दी से ये implement हो सकता था. But because there are so many institutions in our country, it leads to a lot of delays. बहुत सारी meeting, committees and routines follow करते हैं. And sometimes dealing with these institutions can be frustrating. And you may feel that it's much better that one person takes all decisions without any rules, procedures and meetings. But this is not the spirit of democracy. Institutions are important because they help us in taking difficult decisions. You cannot take decisions quickly, but whatever you take, it prevents you from taking rash decisions. देखोगे, डेमोक्रेसी में हमेशा बहुत सारे बैरियर्स क्रिएट किए जाते हैं, जानबूझकर बैरियर्स क्रिएट किए जाते हैं, that nobody can take a rash decision and implement it. Just say recently what happened in Sri Lanka, that their prime minister one day thought that we need to be, or their president, he thought that Sri Lanka should be a fully organic country, and he implemented a law for the same, fully organic. He banned all kind of fertilizers without any warning, without any discussion. उसको सपना आया कि बैन करना चाहिए, and he is very powerful because they do not have such institutions in place. So he took that decision. Decision was implemented. Suddenly they saw that their agriculture and productivity fall by 50%. And then COVID. So because of COVID and this scenario, they were not even able to import things from other countries, and people literally has to rationalize their feeding. कि आज खाएंगे कल बचाएंगे, ऐसी वाली system आ गई श्रीलंका में. And then he was forced to take back his mandate, and now fertilizers are once again allowed in Sri Lanka. This happened within a span of 6 to 8 months. 6 महीने में इसको समझ में आ गया कि नहीं हो सकता. But he has taken his decision back, and fertilizers are now allowed. Many people have suffered hunger. Many people are put in jail because of this one provision. what will happen to them? Will they ever get justice? No. So in democracy, we do not take rash decisions. We take good decisions, even if it is delayed. And that's why democratic governments insist on institutions. So when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was saying कि देश रहना चाहिए, he was saying that institutions in our country should remain intact. When you start degrading the dignity of parliament, अक्सर सुनते होगे कि prime ministers are not using parliamentary language. तुम लोगों ने मेरा शायद व्हाट्सएप स्टेटस देखा होगा, योगी जी कह रहे हैं सुनो केजरीवाल, केजरीवाल कह रहे हैं सुनो योगी. What they are doing? They are destroying the dignity of the post. This is called CM. वो CM के institutions को खत्म कर रहे हैं, उसकी sanctity को खराब कर रहे हैं. You may not have क्या कहें, तुम अपनी इज्जत नहीं प्यारी होगी, बट उस सीएम पोस्ट की एक अपनी मर्यादा है, and that should be upholded. When parliamentarians used unparliamentary language in the parliament house, they are barred from that, they are punished for that, because parliament has some sanctity. It's an institution which should be upholded. The duties that it perform, it should be allowed to perform. When MPs involved into horse trading, when they started voting by taking money, पार्लियामेंट का पूरा इंस्टीट्यूशन खतरे में है. एक बार अगर पार्लियामेंट का इंस्टीट्यूशन खत्म हो गया तो डेमोक्रेसी नहीं बच सकती. फिर सीबीआई, इसलिए कहते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट, कोई भी गवर्नमेंट आती है, सबसे पहले the first thing that they try to do is to control these institutions. They will corrupt CBI, they will corrupt other institutions, they will appoint their own people there. If that system is corrupted, but still these systems are very resilient in our country. Our constitution is made in such a way that these institutions have been given so much power that they can prevent themselves from any external coercion. देखेंगे कैसे. So first and the foremost very important institution is parliament. हम देखते हैं कि सब कुछ पार्लियामेंट में हो रहा है. मंडल कमीशन का रिपोर्ट डिस्कस होता है, प्रेसिडेंट मेंशन करते हैं और प्राइम मिनिस्टर फिर रिपोर्ट पब्लिश करते हैं. एवरीथिंग इज फाइनली हैपनिंग इन पार्लियामेंट. डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आ सकता है मेंस में, व्हाई डू वी नीड अ पार्लियामेंट? वी नो दैट पार्लियामेंट इज द लेजिस्लेटिव arm of or organ of the state. In state level we call this as legislature or legislative assemblies. क्या क्या features हैं? First feature is parliament is the final authority for making laws in any country, not just in India. In any democracy, parliament should be the final authority. Whatever parliament says about law, that has the final authority. They can make new law, they can change the existing law, they can abolish the existing law and make one in their place, make new one in their place. Parliament all over the world exercise some control over those who run the government. Parliament is actually there to control exercise, to keep in check people who are running the government. So parliament is there to control prime minister, parliament is there to control ministers. ये बहुत हम लोग आसानी से समझते नहीं है इस बात को कि क्यों पार्लियामेंट इंपॉर्टेंट है. हमको लगता है मोदी जी तो बन गए प्राइम मिनिस्टर, तो अब उनको जो करना है करने दिया जाना चाहिए. But in a democracy you need parliament to control those who run the government. In some countries like India, this control is direct and full. In some other countries, ये इतना डायरेक्ट नहीं हो सकता. हमारे यहाँ तो डायरेक्ट है भाई. पार्लियामेंट को जो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर को जो भी करना है, he has to do under the guidance of the parliament. Parliament also controls the money. We have discussed this before, and is the highest discussion for debate and discussion. We have discussed this part also. Now in parliament we have two houses. Why do we need two houses in the parliament? One house we have discussed before also, the Raj Sabha and the Lok Sabha. Raj Sabha is known as Council of States, Lok Sabha को House of People कहते हैं. Now our constitution does give Raj Sabha some special power over the states. As the name suggests, Rajya Sabha, it has some special power in relation to state governments. क्या क्या पावर है? But in most matters, Lok Sabha exercises supreme power. हमने डिस्कस किया था, Lok Sabha has more power than Rajya Sabha. More power क्या है? First, अगर कोई ordinary law होता है, any law, ordinary law, that should be passed by both houses. If government is trying to make any law, that law should be passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. लेकिन ये समझो, लोकसभा में कितनी सीट्स हैं? 545 मानते हैं, 543 सीट है. So 545 सीट्स है मान लो. राज्यसभा में कितनी सीट्स हैं? 245. Now in Rajya Sabha elections, the members of Rajya Sabha are elected by MLAs. तो क्या है, जिस गवर्नमेंट की सरकार ज्यादा स्टेट्स में होगी, that government will have that party, जिस पार्टी की सरकार ज्यादा स्टेट्स में होगी, उस पार्टी के ज्यादा लोग राज्यसभा में होंगे, राइट? If UP or if BJP is ruling all the states in India, they will have more MPs in Rajya Sabha. If Congress is ruling more states in India, they will have more members in Rajya Sabha. So at present scenario, you know that although in Lok Sabha BJP has absolute majority, it has more than 300 seats. But in Rajya Sabha, because many states are still under either Congress or under some state parties, Rajya Sabha में BJP does not have a complete majority. So in this case, let's suppose a law is proposed, and because BJP has 300 plus members here, they can pass any ordinary law here. ठीक है, किसी भी कोई भी लॉ प्रपोज करेंगे, वहां 273 वोट्स तो उनको मिल ही जाएंगे, because they are their own MPs, so they will vote for them. But when they will introduce this law in Rajya Sabha, they may not have the majority. Let's suppose there are 100 MPs who are coming from BJP and 145 from all different other parties. In this case, BJP cannot pass the bill. If Rajya Sabha will stop that bill, it will stop there. So what BJP can do, there is a provision of joint session. What will happen that both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members will be called at one place to vote on that particular bill. Now what will happen? 300 BJP के इधर and 100 people, 100 votes they have there. 200 इधर कितना बचा? 245 people, 245 या 145, 245, and so basically क्या होगा कि when they will call for a joint session, now BJP will have more number of votes because Lok Sabha is the larger party. They can pass any ordinary bill here. So joint session बुलाया जाता है because of the large number of members. The view of the Lok Sabha is likely to prevail in such meetings. जब भी joint session आएगा, लोकसभा का जो बिल व्यू होगा वो प्रिवेल करेगा. So joint session gives more power to लोकसभा. ठीक है, ये नंबर इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, बात क्या समझिए. ज्वाइंट सेशन लोकसभा को ज्यादा पावर देता है. नाउ मनी मैटर्स में अगर if there is any issue associated with money, that in those laws लोकसभा has special power. अगर जैसे कि बजट है, लोकसभा has passed the budget, but even if Rajya Sabha do not agree with that budget, they cannot do anything. At max they can delay it by 14 days or can suggest some changes into it. मान लो कि बीजेपी ने कोई बजट पास किया अभी, अब ये पहले लोकसभा में पास होगा और उसके बाद फिर ये राज्यसभा में जाएगा. जब ये राज्यसभा में जाएगा, अब राज्यसभा के पास दो ऑप्शन है. राज्यसभा कैन डू टू थिंग्स. Either it reject the bill and send it back to the Lok Sabha, or it send it to the Lok Sabha with some changes, or it does not do anything for 14 days. It just keeps sitting on it. 14 days तक कुछ नहीं करते. अगर if Rajya Sabha is returning the bill to the Lok Sabha, Lok Sabha has all the power. It can pass the bill again, same bill. It will say no, I do not accept your changes, I am correct. So if it passes the bill again, Rajya Sabha has to pass that. Then Rajya Sabha do not have any power over this second time bill. और अगर राज्यसभा कुछ नहीं करती है 14 days तक, they choose not to discuss, not to pass this bill, then this bill is itself presumed to be passed. तो माना जाता है कि बिल पास हो गया, ठीक है, वो सीधा प्रेसिडेंट के पास चला जाएगा साइन होने के लिए. तो इन मनी रिलेटेड मैटर्स राज्यसभा do not have power. पूनम इज सेइंग कि ऑर्डिनरी बिल, देखो ऑर्डिनरी बिल यही होता है, एक पैसा से रिलेटेड बिल होता है जिसको मनी बिल बोलते हैं, और डिटेल से पढ़ोगे लक्ष्मीकांत में. बट एक मनी रिलेटेड बिल है और एक ऑर्डिनरी बिल है जिसमें पैसे की बात नहीं हो रही है, या फिर एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल होता है, संविधान बदलने की बात है. तो ये सब कुछ स्पेशल बिल्स हैं. अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अमेंडमेंट करने वाला बिल नहीं हो या पैसे से रिलेटेड जो बिल नहीं हो, उसको ऑर्डिनरी बिल बोलते हैं. जैसे कि फार्मर्स लॉ आया था, वो तो ऑर्डिनरी बिल. सो वी कैन सी कि इवन इन मनी मैटर्स Lok Sabha is more powerful. And most importantly, Lok Sabha controls the Council of Ministers. Only a person who enjoys the support of the majority of the Lok Sabha is appointed as the Prime Minister. See, even if the government does not have majority in Rajya Sabha, it can continue to be in power. हमने देखा ना कि इस राज्यसभा में बीजेपी को 100 सीटें भी हैं तो ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन के रह सकते हैं. राज्यसभा कैन नॉट से कि वी विल रिमूव द प्राइम मिनिस्टर. राज्यसभा कैन नॉट रिमूव प्राइम मिनिस्टर, बट लोकसभा कंट्रोल्स द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर. लोकसभा कैन रिमूव द प्राइम मिनिस्टर, कैन रिमूव द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स. सो लोकसभा मेंबर्स क्या कहते हैं, नो कॉन्फिडेंस लेके आते हैं. अगर लोकसभा मेंबर्स कहते हैं कि आई डू नॉट हैव द कॉन्फिडेंस इन द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर, द प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैज टू रिजाइन। राज्यसभा ऐसा कुछ नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है। नाउ पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव, देखो, I don't know, many of you are not asking this question, but I have been asked this question quite often in almost all the classes, that why ministers are given so much power over civil servants. Why civil servants are forced to do whatever the ministers tell them to do. So answer is in these 2 pages. Who do you think, who should have more power, ministers or civil servants? किसको ज्यादा पावर दिया जाना चाहिए in a democracy? How many of you think that civil servants should have more power? Sonali, civil servants. Good. कोई तो अपने फेवर में है. Brinda is also civil servants. Good. देखते हैं. So in our country we know about executives, right? Executives क्या है? At different levels of the government you find functionaries who take day-to-day decisions but do not exercise the supreme power on behalf of the people. All these functionaries are collectively known as executives. ये जो लोग डे टू डे एक्टिविटी करते हैं, राइट, स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द क्लर्क और प्यून टू जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी और चीफ सेक्रेटरी, प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी, all they are part of executives. They are called executive because they are in charge of the execution of the policies of the government. ठीक है. अब एग्जीक्यूटिव 2 तरीके के होते हैं, पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव. So one that is elected by the people for a specific period are called political executive, like prime minister, like ministers. They are elected for a specific period of time by the people. तो इनको क्या बोलेंगे? Political executive. So all the political leaders who take big decisions fall in this category, and then we are preparing to be permanent executives or civil servants, those who are appointed on long-term basis. So ministers will come and go and we will be where we are. So they remain in office even when ruling party changes. Now you can ask this question, why does the political executive have more power than the non-political executive? Question is, why do ministers have the final say on the matters of defense, industry, health, science, technologies and mines? देखो रीजन बहुत सिंपल है. आई थिंक कोई झारखंड से था, वो कह रहा था कि हमारे यहाँ किसी को बना दिया है, someone who is not even 10th passed, he has been made minister of education. The reason is very simple. In democracy, the will of the people is supreme, and the minister is the representative of the people. So whatever minister is saying is the will of the people, and because will of the people is supreme, whatever the minister is saying is the supreme thing. And that's why ministers take all the final decisions, not us. Then the question is about their qualification. See, ministers, the minister is not expected to be an expert in the matters of our ministry. Minister से expect भी नहीं करना चाहिए कि expert should be a minister of his or her district in the ministry. Minister का क्या है? Minister takes the advice of the experts on all technical matters. देखो, किसी भी कंट्री में जाओगे, different experts hold different opinions. Today in our country, you ask some economists, they will tell you a very different path. You ask other economists, they will tell you a very different path. There's no convergence between two economists. You ask a JNU economist, they will tell you something else. You ask the economist अमिताभ कांत से जाके पूछो, वो तुमको अलग उपाय बताएंगे. So the minister task is not to be expert of something. He pick and choose the best expert opinion that he thinks depending upon what overall objective is. जनता क्या चाहती है, in which direction government people wants to move in, what is the aspiration of the country. Based upon that, minister's task is to just pick and choose. Actually देखो बड़े बड़े organizations में भी यही होता है. It's not that कि Mark Zuckerberg is expert of writing all the codes himself. 20 साल पहले उसने जावा और C++ सीखा होगा, अभी उसको ये पता नहीं होगा उसको कितना मॉडर्न लैंग्वेजेस आती हैं. But his decision, his job now is not to write each and every line of code. He do not need to be an expert of metaverse. He is the one who overlooked the picture, who took the most important decisions. Expert can tell the route, but someone with a larger view decides the destination. So these ministers are supposed to have a larger view because they are in touch with the people. समझ में आई बात? Why ministers are given more power than civil servants? Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Now we have seen the Prime Minister is the most important political institution in the country. ये क्वेश्चन भी कई बार एमसीक्यूज में आ जाता है. प्रेसिडेंट इज अपॉइंटेड बाय प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज अपॉइंटेड बाय द प्रेसिडेंट और प्रेसिडेंट अपॉइंट्स प्राइम मिनिस्टर. बट इट्स नॉट लाइक ही कैन अपॉइंट एनीवन. प्रेसिडेंट अपॉइंट करता है प्राइम मिनिस्टर को, बट ही हैज टू अपॉइंट ओनली द लीडर ऑफ द मेजॉरिटी पार्टी. वो किसको अपॉइंट करेगा? whosoever party will have the majority in the election, they will elect their leader and president will appoint that leader as prime minister. Sometimes it happens that no single party is able to form government. किसी को भी 273 seats नहीं आती अकेले. In that case, parliament president will call for the largest coalition. जो सबसे बड़ा कोलिजन पार्टी है उनको बुलाया जाएगा. In some cases even the coalition is not able to form the government, then it is left to the president to appoint the person most likely to secure a majority. President किसी भी ऐसे आदमी को बुला सकता है which he thinks that he can get majority, he can secure majority. The very big power for the president. We will see how बहुत बड़ा power है president के हाथ में. ये बहुत ही controversial है and most of you will mark this question in prelims wrong. Prime Minister does not have a fixed tenure. Statement सही है या गलत है? How many of you think it's a right statement or a wrong statement? President का election तो 5 साल के लिए होता है ना, all of us know, right? President is elected for 5 years. So the statement is right or wrong? Right. How? तो कह रहा है कि president का tenure fixed नहीं है. The statement is wrong because government is elected for 5 years, but if in between the parliament or the MPs decide that they do not want the prime minister to be in power, then prime minister has to resign. So there is no fixed term that once you have become a prime minister, you will be there. You can be removed anytime you loses the support of the majority. So prime minister's tenure is not fixed. नॉर्मल कंडीशन में 5 साल फिक्स होता है, ठीक है। तो ये थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन बहुत लोगों को होता है, स्टेटमेंट डायरेक्ट एग्जाम में आएगा तो ध्यान रखना है। He can only have power as long as he remain the leader of the majority. Now, Prime Minister जो है, he appoints on his advice. Prime Minister will tell President to advise other ministers. जैसे हम देखते हैं कोई भी स्मृति ईरानी हो या निर्मला सीतारमन हो या राजनाथ सिंह हो या और क्या नाम राजनाथ सिंह हो, all these people are given ministries on the advice of prime minister. If prime minister will tell the president that remove this very person, president will remove that person. This is the power of prime minister. Now ministers usually form the party or the coalition that has the majority in Lok Sabha. एक मिनट रुक जाओ थोड़ा सा, just wait for a second. Where I was. The statement is again very important. Prime Minister can make anyone minister. That person should be a member of parliament. So Prime Minister can ask President to make anyone a minister if he is a member of parliament. But sometimes even a person who is not a member of parliament can become a minister. So if you know, as in the case of Smriti Irani, she lost election. She was not a member of parliament, but still when government was formed, she was made a minister. Similarly, Amit Shah, he didn't contested any election, but when the government was formed, he was made home minister. How? The president has this power, or prime minister has this power, that he can make a person who is not a member of parliament a minister, but that person has to get elected to one of the houses of the parliament within 6 months of appointment as minister. So what happens? Once you become minister, you need to win an election either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. So generally क्या होता है, राज्य सभा का कोई सीट रिजाइन कर देते हैं and all these people can be made member of parliament again. ठीक है, ये समझ में आया सबको कैसे even Prime Minister Modi can appoint me today as his minister. The only thing that I have to do is I have to become a member of parliament in next 6 months. Now, Council of Ministers is the official name of the body that includes all the ministers. हमने क्या बोला, ये MPs में से कुछ लोग minister बनेंगे. Now, these ministers are called, this group of ministers is called Council of Ministers. ठीक है? It usually has 60 to 80 members of different ranks. ये Council of Ministers COM, it has 60 to 80 ministers. How many of you have heard this phrase minimum government maximum governance? सुना है किसी ने? Minimum government maximum governance? नहीं सुना? सुना है? In 2014 election, this was a major promise, and even today BJP government usually tell this minimum government maximum governance. What does this mean? This means that the government will be very less, means there will be less ministers, there will be less bureaucracy, there will be less interference of government, and there will be more governance. Ruling will be better. The implementation of the schemes will be better. The idea था minimum government और maximum governance का. So what happened when in 2014 BJP formed its government? One person used to have many portfolios. So the same person will be the minister of electricity, will be the minister of railway transportation or railways, or same person will be the minister of commerce. The idea behind this was if same person is running all these three things, he can integrate all the things in a better coordinated manner. रेलवे को कोयला चाहिए तो कहाँ से आएगा? कॉमर्स मिनिस्ट्री को if they have to transport something, so how to do that? Same person will be taking the decision. It will be better efficient decision making. This was the idea of minimum governance, minimum government, maximum governance. So in parliament there is this rule that only 15% of MPs can be made ministers. So कितना हो जाएगा 15%? 445 का 15% निकालो. What will be the 15% of 545? कितना कमजोर है मैथ तुम लोगों का? It will be somewhere around 80, 81. So there is this is the maximum cap. So in parliament, there can be a maximum 81 ministers of various ranks. Can you think of why this limit has been put on? Why not all MPs can be made ministers? क्यों ये लिमिट लगाया गया होगा? कुछ सोच सकते हो? Essentially, the task of MPs is to make laws. They are legislature essentially, but some of them are given the task of ministers. Now ministers are basically executive. Executives enjoy a lot of power. Normal MP से ministers के पास बहुत ज़्यादा power होता है, because इनके पास पैसा होता है, इनके पास ministry होती है, they can do a lot of things. So everybody wanted, there was a time when everybody wanted to become ministers, and government used to do the same. देखो ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर बैठे हैं और ये सबको यहाँ लाइन लगाकर बैठे हैं कि हमारा नाम आएगा कि नहीं मिनिस्ट्री के लिस्ट में. So political parties used to do this a lot. They used to make normal MPs as ministers to lure them into their party कि ठीक है आप हमारे पार्टी में आ जाइए, हम आपको मिनिस्टर बना देंगे. अभी भी तुम देखते होगे जब भी जोड़ तोड़ की राजनीति होती है, wherever there is a coalition government, one of the major, जैसे कि कांग्रेस से ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया in MP, he resigned from Congress and joined BJP. What was the major benefit that was promised to him is, if you come to our party, you will be given a ministerial seat. MP तो वहाँ कांग्रेस में भी he was MP. With BJP he will also be MP, but now he will be a minister as well. So more power. अगर ये सोचो कि अगर unlimited list होता, तो party in the power could have made everyone minister and they would have spending public money. तो एक change लाके government constitutional amendment होता है, and after that constitutional amendment the limit was fixed at 15%. 91st constitutional amendment act है. After that they said कि only 15% people will become ministers. ठीक है. Now a council of ministers कौन कौन होते हैं? So in these 80 people council of ministers, not everyone is equal. Even here there is not everyone is equal. यहाँ पे सबसे पहले होते हैं कुछ cabinet ministers. These cabinet ministers are the top of the top. मतलब एकदम जो most powerful people हैं, the people that you know today probably, Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah, Nirmala Sitharaman, and such important leaders. Rajnath Singh, these are cabinet ministers. क्या बोल रहे हैं कि the top level of rulers, leaders of the ruling party, usually cabinet ministers take the decision in the name of council of ministers. This is very important. Cabinet ministers actually government में जितने decision होते हैं, they are taken by the cabinet, and then council of ministers accept those, क्योंकि ये बार बार 80 लोग एक साथ आके नहीं डिसीजन ले सकते कि क्या करना है किसी भी इशू पे. सो एक कैबिनेट होता है, ग्रुप ऑफ 10, 20, 15 पीपल, चाहे कि 25 पीपल, कोई फिक्स नंबर नहीं, तो 25 लोग मिलके डिसाइड करते हैं मेजर डिसीजंस. उसके बाद कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स के बाद कौन आते हैं? मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट विथ इंडिपेंडेंट चार्जेस. So there will be some people who are given smaller ministries. मतलब वो डिफेंस वगैरह ऐसा कोई बड़ा मिनिस्ट्री नहीं देख रहे हैं, कोई टेक्सटाइल या खाद्य प्रसंस्करण और फर्टिलाइजर इंडस्ट्री, ऐसा कुछ मिनिस्ट्री, छोटा सा इंडस्ट्री को इनको दे दिया गया with independent charge. So they participate in cabinet meeting only when specially invited. ये मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट्स को अगर बुलाया जाएगा कि आप आइए कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर में, कैबिनेट मीटिंग में, then only they will participate. And then there are minister of states. This is the most confusing term. मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट सुन के लगता है कि स्टेट वाले मिनिस्टर होंगे, but they are not स्टेट वाले मिनिस्टर. They are the ministers who assist the cabinet ministers. The cabinet minister हर मिनिस्ट्री में कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर को असिस्ट करने के लिए एक दो लोग रखे जाते हैं. So they are like junior ministers. because all the major decisions are taken by the cabinet. इसीलिए कई बार हमारे इंडियन मॉडल को कैबिनेट फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट भी कहा जाता है. Our government model is known as cabinet form of government because they take all the major decisions. Every ministry will have secretaries who are basically civil servants. These secretaries are supposed to do all the background research based upon which the ministers take their decisions. Now, powers of parliament. Prime Minister. Prime Minister has a lot of power. We have seen क्या क्या कर सकता है. He basically or she basically runs the whole government. If he resigns, the government falls. She can pick and choose any minister, and that's why Indian model is also known as prime ministerial form of government. Although क्या कह रहे हैं कि because of the rise of coalition politics, प्राइम मिनिस्टर के ऊपर काफी रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगा है. I remember when I used to participate in some discussions. हमारे यहाँ when I was in वर्धमान, वर्धमान के जो डीएम सर थे सौमित्र मोहन सर, उस समय वो हमेशा कहते थे कि coalition form of government is better for India. And at that time मुझे लगता था कि क्या बकवास कर रहे हैं. Like coalition, when there is a coalition form of government, डिसीजंस नहीं ले पाते हैं, करप्शन बढ़ जाता है, ऐसा ऐसा मैं सोचता था. और वो हमेशा कहते थे कि नहीं, इंडिया के लिए कोलिजन फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट अच्छा है. तुम लोगों को क्या लगता है, which form of government is better for India? The government of absolute majority that we have today, or government of coalition? क्या लगता है? वो कोलिजन ही पसंद है. Why? क्यों कोलिजन अच्छा है? क्यों? What's the reason? You need powerful people to make powerful decisions, right? क्या होना चाहिए? शरत, क्या होना चाहिए? So during collision, we generally see the prime minister cannot take decisions as he likes. He has to accommodate the different groups and factions in his party as well as among the alliance partners. So in a coalition government, what we see basically that it becomes a government where a lot of corruptions has to be overlooked. UPA 2 के government हमने क्या देखा? That government has to overlook many corruptions because जैसे 2G scam में DMK was an important constituent of Congress, and if they would not have given the ministry to the DMK, Congress government would have fallen. तो कई बार ऐसा होता है कि जिसको जो मिनिस्ट्री मिलती है, they try to earn as much money as they want, or they can. Long term policy decisions नहीं हो पाते हैं because everybody is pulling from one side to another side. But इंडिया में हम कुछ अलग ही देखते हैं. In our country, if you'll see the track history of India, whenever we had a coalition governments, we have done a fantastic job economically, politically, and socially. So first, during 1990s, early phase, we bring LPG reforms. जो एक बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म था, एलपीजी रिफॉर्म, opening of Indian markets, it could have been possible only when we had a coalition government. सेकेंड फेज में देखते हैं, ये फेज में काफी डेवलपमेंट होता है और इकोनॉमी स्टार्टेड राइजिंग. इवन ड्यूरिंग द फेज ऑफ अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी, we saw tremendous progress. There was a coalition government, but he was able to bring all the partners together, and even we had a major nuclear test during this form of government. So defense wise, we also saw our strength. UPA 1 के time में we saw again great economic growth during the UPA 1 at least. The data itself suggests that we have taken a lot of good decisions during coalition governments. It happens because no one party takes absolute decisions. यही करेंगे और यही कर देते हैं. Everybody is forced to deliberate, to discuss upon the things. And sometimes in a democracy, it's good to not take decisions. बेंजामिन फ्रैंकलिन का एक बहुत अच्छा कोट है, you should know and you should use it. कहीं भी आसान सा, don't fix that is not broken, but don't fix if it's not broken. कुछ खराब नहीं है, उसको ठीक करने की कोशिश मत कर. जो चल रहा है उसको चलने दिया जाना चाहिए. Sometimes absolute governments try to fix the things which are not broken, and it broke the things even more. So in our case, coalition governments has done wonders on every front. They have taken most frank, bold decisions, which many a times even parties of absolute majority could not have taken. Anyway, moving forward, the president. I'm leaving this to you. देखो क्या होता है ना, जब हम लोग पढ़ना शुरू करते हैं, हमारा एक ग्रेजुअल राइज होता है. हम पहले चाहते हैं सब कुछ तुरंत बदल दें, सब कुछ बहुत बुरा है, जितनी जल्दी जितना स्विफ्ट चेंज आए. And slowly we realize, the more we read, the more educated we will become. We realize that swiftness is not what we need in democracy. In democracy, we need, like law में, those who have ever read law क्या कहता है? Even if you let go 100 criminals, it's okay. But law should never punish one innocent person. 100 अपराधी छूट जाते हैं तो ठीक है, वो कभी ना कभी पकड़े जाएंगे, जो वो करते हैं ठीक है, बट लॉ कभी भी इनोसेंट आदमी को पनिश नहीं करना चाहिए. That is one of the bedrocks of any law making. हरीडनेस में कई बार हम इनोसेंट लोगों को पनिश कर देते हैं. Now about president. As we have discussed, president is the head of the state. President supervises the overall functioning of all political institutions in the country so that they operate in harmony to achieve the objective of the state. President चाहिए क्यों? It's a ceremonial position. Although he do not have much power, still we need a president because he is a supervisor of everything. तो किसी भी इंस्टीट्यूशन से किसी को कंप्लेन होता है, देखते होंगे आज के टाइम में भी many times Congress goes to president कि this is not happening good, you should interfere into this. So, because president is supposed to be an guardian of the democracy. He is supposed to be a neutral person who is sitting there to achieve a harmony. तो कई बार देखते होंगे जब बीजेपी की गवर्नमेंट आई, on that time Pranab Mukherjee was the president. He was a lifelong Congress supporter. But even when a party with which maybe his ideology might not be matching came into the power, we saw very little conflicts. ऐसा कभी हमने नहीं देखा कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर कुछ और कह रहे हैं और प्रेसिडेंट कुछ और कह रहे हैं. Because presidents are supposed to create harmony, not to create conflict. देखते हैं. So how they are elected? President is not elected directly by the people. They are elected by the MPs and MLAs. क्या होता है? काफी complicated system है. You will read more in Lakshmikant. But MPs of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, मतलब MP बोलूं तो समझ लो लोक सभा and Rajya Sabha, plus MLAs of all the states, they vote together to elect president. A candidate standing for president's post had to get a majority of votes to win the election. तो ऐसा क्या है कि this ensures the president can be seen to represent the entire nation. MLAs को क्यों include करते हैं इसमें? Because president is supposed to be a representative of all the people, not just few states, all the states. But he is not elected directly. क्योंकि अगर वो डायरेक्ट इलेक्शन हो तो देयर विल बी अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन द प्राइम मिनिस्टर एंड द प्रेसिडेंट. प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी बोलेगा कि जनता का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव मैं हूं, प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी बोलेगा कि जनता का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव मैं हूं, किसकी बात मानी जाए? देयर विल बी अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन द टू. तो प्रेसिडेंट इज इलेक्टेड इनडायरेक्टली टू अवॉइड दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. She remains only a nominal executive. एक और पावर क्या है प्रेसिडेंट के पास सबसे बड़ा? Any government appointment or all major appointments are made in the name of president. President हर पेपर पे साइन करेगा, चाहे वो मिनिस्टर्स हों, प्रेसिडेंट्स हों, CAG हो, we will see all the people, all the constitution, on all constitutional posts, they are appointed by the sign of president. Chief Justice, judges of the Supreme Court, election commissioner, governors of the states, ambassadors are appointed by him. He is also the supreme commander of Defense Forces of India. But देखने से लग रहा है कि अच्छा बहुत पावर है. He is appointing everyone. He is also the commander of all the forces. But president should always act on the advice of the Council of Ministers. The president के लिए mandated है कि whatever Council of Ministers will tell he has to do. So even when Pranab Mukherjee was the prime minister, the president, he has to do whatever the BJP government was telling him to do because he is bound to do that. At sometimes he can ask the Council of Ministers to reconsider their advice. He can tell them कि नहीं भाई थोड़ा देख लो, सोच लो, this do not sounds good. But if the Council of Ministers tell them, give them the same advice again, he is bound to follow those. Now, there should be one very important thing you should know about the president: appointment of prime minister. क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ा पावर है प्रेसिडेंट के हाथ में. He or she, whoever is president, decides who should be asked to form government in case of a coalition. इसीलिए सारी पार्टी चाहते हैं कि उनके फेवर का प्रेसिडेंट हो. Let's suppose in a parliament there are three factions, three groups. One party is getting 200 seats, another party is getting 100 seats, another party is also getting about 180 seats. ये तीन कोलिजन बन रहा है. अब इस केस में when nobody is forming the government, actually president can choose who should be the prime minister. पर एक बार अगर वो किसी को चूज कर लेता है, मान लो वो 180 वाले को बुला देता है कि you, I think that this person can show majority, and he asks him. Now this person get the hold of government ministry, government power, treasury money for this time. और उतने टाइम में वो गवर्नमेंट पावर मनी यूज करके he can buy the loyalty of a lot of people and he can show his majority. तो ये बहुत बड़ा पावर है उसके हाथ में. In later classes we will read about presidential system. In USA क्या होता है कि प्रेसिडेंट जो होता है he is also the head of state as well as head of government. मतलब प्रेसिडेंट और प्राइम मिनिस्टर का पावर एक ही आदमी के हाथ में होता है. ट्रम्प के केस में या अभी बाइडेन के केस में their presidents are actually really very powerful. जुडिशरी के बारे में तो we have read, so यहाँ पे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं पढ़ना है. It's the Chief Justice of India who administered the oath of office to the president. ये भी याद रख सकते हो. प्रेसिडेंट को शपथ दिलाते हैं चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया. You should read about these terms. याद रखना चाहिए. Next chapter में we will read about power sharing. Why power should be shared. या आज इसी अभी कर ही लेते हैं इसको. छोटा सा चैप्टर है power sharing, and then we will come and we'll start reading federalism. पावर शेयरिंग में क्या हो रहा है? बेल्जियम एंड श्रीलंका, दो एग्जांपल्स हैं. The question is, why should not one person or one party or one institution should have all the power? Why we are trying to divide the power between so many people? एक आदमी के पास क्यों नहीं पावर होना चाहिए? जो बात अभी तक शरत को समझ में नहीं आई. Why one person should not have all the power? देखते हैं क्या होता है if the power is concentrated into one place. Belgium and Sri Lanka. Two examples are here. Belgium is a small country in Europe. Belgium is very interesting. I will show you the picture. It's even smaller than Haryana and it borders with France, Netherlands, Germany and Luxembourg. बेल्जियम ऐसा शहर है जिसको मुझे शायद आई थिंक हमारे पास मैप होगा. So this is the map of Belgium. It has borders with other European countries and its population is of 3 मेन इथनिक कम्युनिटीज या 4 मेन इथनिक कम्युनिटीज बोल सकते हैं. एक तो फ्रेंच पीपल स्पीकिंग लोग हैं, ये रेड वाले फ्रेंच स्पीकिंग है. देन वी हैव डच स्पीकिंग, डच बोलने वाले. एंड देन वी हैव सम पीपल हु स्पीक जर्मन हु आर हियर. ऐसा देख के क्या लग रहा है, इन दिस 59% फ्लेमिश है और दे स्पीक डच. 59% डच बोलने वाले, 40% जो है वो जर्मन बोलने वाले लोग हैं. सॉरी, नहीं उल्टा बोल रहा हूँ. 40% फ्रेंच बोलने वाले और 1% के आसपास जर्मन बोलने वाले. 59, 40 एंड 1. बट कैपिटल में क्या है इनके? इन द कैपिटल ऑफ ब्रुसेल्स we see that 80% people speak French. ये जो माइनॉरिटी है, it is majority in the capital, and only 20% people speak Dutch here. समझ में आया क्या है? कॉम्प्लिकेशन समझ में आई तुम लोगों को? Who is majority in the country? ओवरऑल देखे तो डच बोलने वाले ज्यादा हैं. ये डच बोलने वाले they are 59%. फ्रेंच बोलने वाले only 40%. But they are majority in the capital. This French speaking community is relatively rich and powerful. ये 40% जो लोग हैं ये ज्यादा रिच हैं और ज्यादा पावरफुल हैं. This was resented by the Dutch speaking community. डच स्पीकिंग वाले लोगों को पसंद नहीं है. डच स्पीकिंग एंड फ्रेंच स्पीकिंग कम्युनिटीज, सो इनके बीच में लड़ाई होती है 1950s एंड 60s में. ऐसा ही प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है श्रीलंका में. इट्स एन आइलैंड नेशन. In Sri Lanka, we see that 74% people are Sinhala speaking and 18% are Tamil speakers. Something like what we see in India, 80% and 14% का जो डिवीजन, वैसा ही कुछ यहाँ पे Sinhala speaking and Tamil speakers का है. Now these Tamil speaking peoples comes from different background. Some Tamil speakers are Indian Tamils who have migrated from India to Sri Lanka during British rule. Some are native Indian, some are native Tamilians जो वहीं के हैं. And while Sinhala speaking peoples are mainly Buddhist, Tamils are Hindus and Muslims alike. And 7% Christians are both Tamil and Sinhala. Christians जो हैं वो दोनों में हैं, Tamils में भी हैं, Sinhalas में भी. देखो कि दोनों में क्या डिफरेंस है बेजियन और श्रीलंका में. In Sri Lanka, they follow the model of majoritarianism. That they say because we are 74%, we will do whatever we want to do. So you see here, ये येलो वाला जो पूरा पार्ट है, these are Sinhala speaking and Tamil speaking people are here on the borders. And then we have Indian Tamils in the center as well as in other regions. Majoritarianism क्या है? The belief that majority should continue to able to majority community should be able to rule the country. जो many of you might be believing because we are 80%, we in India should be able to make whatever rules that we want to make. हम तो दूसरे की क्यों सुने, है ना? हम तो 80% हैं. So this is what happened in Sri Lanka. Recently also this was in news. The government followed a preferential policy that favored the Sinhala applicants for university position and government jobs. पहले क्या हुआ था? When Sri Lanka was under British rule, they kind of favored the Tamilians. And Tamilians used to own government posts and they were rich. But when they get independence, they made a law after 1950s that the seats will be reserved for the majority community. They were favored in university position government jobs. When their language and culture was crushed. Recently अभी पिछले साल क्या हुआ कि तमिल में जो उनका होता था नेशनल एंथम, so Tamil version of national anthem was banned. So these Sri Lankan Tamils launched party and struggle for the recognition of an official language. This struggle between the Tamilians and the Sinhlas become very violent and took a turn into a civil war. Civil war is when people of the same country started fighting against each other. So इस civil war का रूप ले लिया and India got badly entangled into this. At one hand, the people from Tamil Nadu and all, they wanted to support the Tamilians because they had marital relationships and all with these people. On the other hand, Rajiv Gandhi and the Congress government of that time wanted to be neutral. Sometimes they wanted to help Sri Lanka. और एक बहुत complicated issue हो जाता है यहाँ पे. We will discuss about this at some point later. For IR की classes कभी करेंगे तो. But दूसरा model है the model of accommodation. In Belgium, what they did, they said कि okay, in the country, the majority is with Dutch people, and in the capital, the majority is with French people. तूने कहा कि let's swap change places. हम सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में 50-50 पावर शेयर कर लेते हैं और सारे स्टेट्स को पावर दे देते हैं that they can make their own rule, और साथ साथ we will make a community government as well who will take the decisions about language, culture and education. So they solved this issue and Brussels is fine today. So we see that power question is why power sharing is desirable, why we should be sharing power. तो दो रीजंस बताते हैं, एक तो प्रूडेंशियल रीजन है और दूसरा मोरल रीजन है. प्रूडेंशियल रीजन इज दैट व्हेन वी अलाउ power sharing, we avoid a lot of conflict, we avoid violence, political stability आती है power sharing से. तो prudently ये समझ में आता है कि any government should opt for this. क्योंकि whenever you will suppress the minority, minority will try to protect its right. Nobody wants to be suppressed. और जब भी ऐसा होगा violence होगा. So it makes sense to be prudent and allow power sharing. Second reason is moral reason. The deeper reason why power sharing is good for democracy. Power sharing is very spirit of democracy. A democratic rule involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and those who live with its effects. Democracy का मतलब ही है कि जो भी country में रह रहा है, whosoever is affected by the policy, they should have their say in decision making. So what are the forms of power sharing? बस 5 मिनट और and बहुत important discussion है. How the power can be shared? देखो power sharing 4 तरीके का example यहाँ दिया है. The first type of power sharing is power sharing among different organs of the government. We have seen कि कैसे legislative, executive और judiciary में power share किया जाता है. Nobody is above anyone. इसको कहते हैं horizontal distribution of power because all these 3 organs are in same level. Central में भी तुमको मिल जाएगा legislative, executive, judiciary. State government में भी you will find executive, legislative, and judiciary. So this is called horizontal distribution of power. And this arrangement is based on system of checks and balances we have discussed. दूसरा है power can be shared among different levels of the government, जिसको कि vertical division of power कहते हैं. Center, state and the third tier पंचायती राज. तो ये क्या है? Horizontal distribution, vertical distribution of power. This is also called as federal division of power or federalism. The third is, वो दोनों तो हमने पढ़ा है. The third is among different societal groups. जैसे बेल्जियम ने क्या किया, कम्युनिटी गवर्नमेंट बना दिया. So different communities can take their decisions. In different communities मतलब reservation in constituencies. What does this mean? That now power is divided between SC, ST, OBC and general. Everybody holds some power. Nobody can say that I am not a participant in the decision making. So सोचो आज के टाइम में रिजर्वेशन ना हो और सिर्फ सारे वोट्स जनरल कैटेगरी को मिले और सारे एमपी जनरल कैटेगरी से आए या किसी एक कम्युनिटी से आए. What will be the effect on the other communities? They will reject the democracy. They will not follow the rule. They will not follow the constitution because that government will not be their government. So distribution of power among different groups ensures the functioning of democracy. We will read about this in detail in unit 3. And finally, the power sharing among political parties, pressure groups and movements. When in democracy, we allow functioning of different political parties, when we allow the working of opposition, when we allow pressure groups and protests and movements, these people feel that we have some power, we have some say into the government. And that's why democracy exists. Otherwise, democracy would cease to exist. This we will be reading in unit 3. This is the gist of it. 2 में आज शुरू करेंगे at 3 p.m. federalism. Why we need federalism, why states should be left to decide what they decide. In chapter 3 we will read democracy and diversity. बहुत important chapter है. I will tell you the 3 all-time best speeches in the world. आज तक के हिस्ट्री में, in the history, जो 3 सबसे अच्छी speeches दी गई हैं उनके बारे में बात करेंगे. And then we will discuss कि whether religion and politics should be allowed to mix, and what happens when religion and religion is allowed to mix. What is communalism? आके हिजाब और बुर्का और ड्रेस और साड़ी सब डिस्कस करेंगे नेक्स्ट सेशन में. ठीक है. Nothing, Imran. We will come and see all these things. Don't worry. Let's meet at 3. Okay. Bye.